is, well, why am I under arrest? Those questions lead up to this point because he has just arrested me. He might say, well, you're not under arrest, and stop at that point. At which point I turned around and said, well, according to all the definitions of all the English dictionaries and the legal dictionaries, if I'm not under arrest, then I'm free to go. I hope you take care of yourself, officer, and have a nice day. I'll be on my way now, thank you. And hopefully you can just put it in gear and drive away. Or travel away, whatever word you want to use. Right. What he does next, he either realizes, I've just been punked, I just got shown, or he's going to shout at you to stop, or he's going to run to the car and chase after you again. It's your confidence as to how you do this. If you're going to wait for him to let you go, then in essence you've given him authority, because you've given him the authority to make the decision as to whether you stay or go. Right. So he has to force that decision on you. Hey, no, you're not going anywhere.
Well, right.
You just told me I'm under arrest. I'm not under arrest. So that becomes the next question. No, you're detained. Excuse me, officer. Every Supreme Court and High Court and whatever court has ascertained, affirmed and reconfirmed that a detention, involuntary detention, is an arrest. You just told me I wasn't under arrest, so I'm free to go. And at this point you can either ask him or just say, because I'm free to go, I don't wish to be here, I don't consent, I'm going now. Have a nice day, officer, and try again. Again, he will either let you or he won't. Now, you can read the situation as to whether you're going to get away with this or it's going to get nasty. It's your call, because doing this, you're challenging the police officer. Now, because of the way that you've asked the questions you've asked, you could well be indicating to him that you have a greater knowledge than maybe he does. And he's just going to let it go and say, I'll catch the next one, this isn't worth it. Or he may be one of those cops, unfortunately, that I've worked with in the past and I've seen and met since then, that I refer to as the knuckle draggers. No offense to the rest of the nice cops out there, the good cops out there, but there are those, and they know too, that work in that job. And they will not like you challenging their power, their perceived authority, that they are God over everybody on the road. And I believe there are cops out there, and if you meet that particular cop, then at this point you have to tread very, very carefully. If he's going to force the issue and force you to remain, then at this point he may start demanding documents, may start demanding all sorts of things.
Time to call the county sheriff. I love it.
Well, at this point you can certainly do that. My next step in the sequence of how to deal with a roadside stop is, if he's not letting you go and he's maintaining that you stay there and you are detained, whether he gives you a reason or not, you can then say, and have it hopefully nearby, and say, well, based on your actions at the moment, sir, I am going to reserve all of my rights, and I am going to waive none of them. My first one is that I do not answer questions. And here is a document that I will give to you that I want you to read very quickly, because at this point the clock is starting, and as per court precedent, we're now at $1,000 a minute. So I want you to read this and then decide whether you're going to detain me further. If you're going to detain me further, then there are instructions about what you need to do in this document, and I suggest you read it now. Or if you refuse, then I want a supervisory officer down here now, because I don't want to deal with you. You are threatening me, and even if you're not outwardly threatening me, I'm under duress. You've stopped me, you've pulled me over, you're threatening simply because of the fact that you have a loaded weapon in a holster on your hip. You may or may not have your hand on that gun, because they like to do that, and then they'll walk to the car sometimes with
That's an
their
assault.
hand on the gun,
If they do that, that's an assault.
because it's a threat. You know,
That's right.
That's right. Ready to
So-
draw. Right.
they're ready to go.
They're
And you're
ready
under
to
threat,
draw, and they say
so
it's because
you
they-
have to be aware of this too, and you explain to them, I don't want to deal with you. I'll wait here. I want a supervisory officer who knows the law to be down here now. I don't mean in an hour, because by then I'll be taking names $1,000 a minute, and it won't be for the department that's paying. It's your name, his name, whoever that holds me up, and I will be suing you each personally for $1,000 a minute.
That's what the document says. It explains
It's
it.
parts of it in here, yeah. I mean, it loosely goes to the court case that refers to that judgment. So I'm going to pass that over, because also on the first page is actually a copy of a letter that was, it's actually a...
Arizona's, the Senator Stump letter.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a certified copy, possible certified copy of that letter that was sent out to the police departments because he had stated, or it come to his attention, I should say, that there were police officers at this time, which was 1985, I believe, people who were returning all of their government identification and not identifying it as anything to do with the government, which they had the right to do. And police officers didn't know that, and they were, let's say,
It didn't match the procedures anymore.
well, exactly, yeah, it was outside their billywhack, as they would say, and they didn't know what to do, so they were just getting antsy and arresting people left, right and centre and being generally violent towards them, because at this point most of the people, the free men and the like that were standing up for their rights, also knew that they had the ability to defend themselves. But that doesn't play well with police officers when you defend. Now you're resisting arrest. Well, it's an illegal arrest, so I have the right to do it, and if I punch you in the face, there's bollocks all you can do about it lawfully. Legally, I know you're going to kick the shit out of me, I'm going to go to jail, and I'm probably going to end up being charged with police assault and everything and go to jail for 2 years. So again, you have to be careful, but it's stating in here, the differences. So this particular letter was sent out to police departments, the sheriff's offices, to explain that there is a valid cause for what was happening. And since then, obviously, I'm sure more and more police departments have been made aware that this is going on, and more people are they're no longer identifying with the government, and they don't want any attachment to the government, and they're standing on their rights for the rights to travel, plus all the other rights that they have. So I'm just going to pass that one. That one's stapled. I have another one here. Actually, it isn't stapled. But
Who?
I'm going to pass that.
No, you got it.
How long have you been speaking? How much about this?
You missed 5 minutes.
Okay.
Just enough time for
15
the
minutes
computer
or
to go to sleep.
Yeah. So, while you guys are kind of looking at that, the whole point behind this now is, again, police officers, government entities, government workers, they work by process, procedure, and presumption. Everything is presumption. They presume that they have the authority over you, the vehicle, whatever else it might be. So, my point behind doing all of this is to explain that, I can do this on the side of the street and explain to the cops this, that and the other, but I've been there. I've listened to people inside of a car giving it this to me. And I just, while I'm writing the ticket, there you go. It's bollocks. It means nothing to the cop on the street, because he has his processes, he has his procedures, he has his perceived authority, and the guy doing this out the window, or the girl, means nothing, has no force or effect. So the whole point behind doing this is, firstly, the evidential initial questioning,
Yep.
you have no probable cause. There's no reason for you to stop me. There's no emergency. No breach of the peace. There's no crime. You know, I didn't commit any kind of an arrestable offence or was about to commit any arrestable offence. And you don't have a warrant for my arrest. So then question, why am I under arrest? Well, you're not under arrest. You're detained. No, the courts have said detention, involuntary detention, is an arrest. I don't want to be here. I want to be on my way. I don't consent to this. Now you can ask, am I under arrest or am I free to go? Now the problem is, you ask the question, and it's probably just, no, you're not free to
They
go.
have to say you're under arrest just out of pride and what?
Well, yeah, I mean at this
They don't
point, it
know.
depends on the cop, it really does. If you're proving the point to him and he does know and has been told, then he might just say, have a nice day, sir, just drive a little
That'd be
slower
nice.
and then on his way. And I've seen some of the videos where that's happening.
Right.
It does appear to be happening.
Right.
And I thank, and you know, I applaud the officers that are doing that, because the simple reason is that we have the right and the right not to be accosted. And once the officers realise that there is no crime and that we have identified ourselves correctly, then they should have nothing more to do with us. Now, because I have this in the back of my car,
Right.
I'm identifying myself before the cop even turns his lights on.
You gave him notice.
I gave him notice.
That's critical.
This is secondary notice. It's also prima facie evidence that I want him to be producing in court if it goes further. Because at this point, the doctrine of good faith, that's going to go out the window too.
Yep.
Because I've just told him, you're committing offences.
Beautiful.
It's all wrong. And I just gave it to you and you supposedly read it, yet you still locked or gave me a ticket, or you locked me up and arrested me and took me down to the station, whatever. So all of that is within that document.
Right.
So the point that I'm trying to make, instead of trying to fight with no ammo in your gun, have the ammo prepare first.
Yep.
Defeat their presumptions.
Yep.
This is the first defeat of the first presumption, and there's many within that document. Now it is actually 20 pages long, but the first 6 pages or so is pretty much all he needs to read to explain the situation, explain that I'm protecting himself from himself because of this potential for being sued for $1,000 a minute.
Right.
After that, it becomes the definitions of the motor vehicle, other definitions that relate to the Traffic Act, the Highway Act that he's trying to enforce at this point, and also Superior and Supreme Court, High Court citations, that refer to previous cases where the right to travel has been affirmed repeatedly. I mean, if there's 20 pages, 6 of them are just telling him, and the rest of them, a good portion of them are definitions and then citations, you're looking at maybe 5 pages of citations. That's a lot. So if he wants to proceed after that point, then we're in a bit of a battle. But I want him to produce that in court,
Right.
if we ever get that far. Sorry.
You want him to produce what? All of the...
Yeah, that is a document. That will be prima facie evidence that I will be requesting as discovery, because it will be my proof that I have given him the documentary evidence to show that he does not have the authority or the right or anything to do what he is doing. He's now operating as a privateer outside the purview of his job.
Can't he say that he never received it?
No, because you missed it, I think, but because I've got cameras
Oh, okay.
and audio recording devices,
Gotcha.
and I'll also, as part of this point, somewhere I'll be slipping in, are you recording this conversation? Do you have a body cam active at this point, or is your dash cam active and recording? And if he says yes, and I'll say good, then I'll be demanding under discovery a copy of that audio and video, so that it will synchronize with the copies of audio and videos that I currently have.
Would you,
So-
you would actually warn him that you're gonna do that? I would warn him
Well,
that
it
you're gonna
depends.
do that.
I mean, it gets to...
Depends on how the conversation.
Oh, yeah, it must have
Yeah.
malfunctioned, I erased it by accident, oops. Oh, does that transmit directly back to dispatch or something?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I mean, it depends on where the
Yeah.
conversation goes.
Yeah, most times it's just recorded on the vehicle.
Yeah.
Beautiful work, beautiful work.
So, there is plenty... Hang on a sec. There is plenty...
I don't know.
They're basically the same. The only difference between those two is that one of them is stapled and the other one isn't.
Oh, they're
So
the same?
They're the same.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, I wouldn't have passed it so quick.
No. You can carry on reading if you want it back. But the whole point behind it, as I say, is to remove their presumptions, because anybody doing this out the window at me, trying to tell me as a cop that, I don't know what I'm doing and you don't have the authority. We've seen the videos of it, and we've seen the guy in the car getting pissed and annoyed because the cop isn't listening to him.
Right.
Well,
There's a reason he's
cop-
not listening.
yes,
And the
because he is
belligerent doesn't
operating
know
under
why.
process procedure and evidence, and you give him that as
Right.
evidence that is defeating his presumption and defeating his process and procedure.
Right.
And hopefully, he's a genuine cop and will just say, okay, you got me. You obviously know what you're doing.
He has to respect, should respect that.
He should respect that, and then have a nice day.
You're prepared for him, just like he got prepared by putting the gun on,
Yeah, and there's different ways that they prepare when they approach the vehicle.
Right.
We mentioned this last time when they actually touched the back of the car, they touched
Right.
the tail light.
I love it.
Oh, you weren't there for that one. The reason they do that,
Well, do what? I don't know if he heard you.
well, what they do is when they get out of their car and they walk towards and approach your car,
Yeah.
they'll touch the back of the car.
Okay.
And they'll put the hand on the tail light or whatever, or maybe even on the top. The tail light's usually the typical one because it's generally clean and it's a good surface. And the reason being is that they just put their fingerprints all over the back of the car. And they don't necessarily need to do that as much these days because they normally have the dash cams running. But certainly older times where there was no dash cam, they did that for the simple reason that if they got shot and killed at the scene, then they had their fingerprints on the back of the car.
So then they have some physical
So
evidence.
They had the physical evidence that if they actually, because normally when they pull the car over, they'll radio in, they'll do checks. So the dispatch
Technology is
normally, well,
replaced.
it's gone ahead, but yeah, the dispatch would normally have the details of the car. So then it would go, oh, it wasn't me, I wasn't driving it, or it's not my car. Well, just dust here a little minute. Well, he's got his fingerprints all over it. So what do you got to say about that? There's the evidence. It's what they do, it's evidence. So you have to defeat their presumptions and provide them with alternative evidence that shows them that they don't have the authority that they're acting under.
You're defeating their own presumptions.
Yeah, and if they're decent enough about it, but they're not letting you go, just say, well, I can't talk to you, I can't deal with you, I've given you all the evidence,
Right.
get me a supervisor down here.
That's,
Or if you really want to throw a spanner in the works, call the local sheriff,
Right.
sheriff's office or whatever county you're in right now, and get on the phone. That's another thing you could do, and get them down there.
I love it.
Now, this is something, it's a different process that continues. And what can sometimes happen is if they don't have any probable cause, then what they try and do is generate probable cause. So, typically, what they'll do next, and I should back up a little bit because normally other people that do these kind of videos, they'll say, oh, just drop the window down about 2 inches because you don't want any draft smelling your breath or whatever. It keeps a little bit of a distance between you and the officer outside, and he can't go reaching through into the car. That's fair enough. But if you want to piss off a cop, then open the window 2 inches when he's on a highway, cars and trucks going past him at 80 miles an hour. He can't hear you, he can barely see you. So be a little nice about it and maybe drop it down a bit further. I mean, the other thing is if you're going to be leaning out to shout to him as he's approaching, you're going to bring the window down anyway, probably all the way. And then as he gets to the car, then maybe you want to bring it up a little bit. Back in your seat and bring it back up. Look, maybe 6 inches maybe. Enough so that he can see you, you can see him, and he can hear. So the next step, typically that happens, and I made a joke about it last time, this really only works if you haven't just been smoking a spliff for the last, half mile down the road. But he turns around to you and says, I smell marijuana. I need you to get out of the car, sir. What he's doing at that point is he's not fishing, he's escalating. He's generating probable cause. Because he doesn't have probable cause for anything else. I smell alcohol. There's another one. Get out of the car, please, sir. I need you to do a breathalyzer test.
That evidence should be thrown out at that point anyway, though.
Yes, because he doesn't have the
you
probable
over-
cause to make the stop in the first place.
Exactly, which I
But
think would work.
courts and judges overrule that because what's happened is that all of a sudden they've caught a bad guy.
No, I know. Well,
So
okay. And what if
this
we
is
were-
where you have to defend against yourself.
What if
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Please.
No,
No, what if I'm a sovereign on the land, Articles of Confederation, the marijuana laws don't apply to me?
again, it's presumption. He's presuming that he has authority because it's illegal. And he's been told that it's illegal, and he is
All his experience,
enforcing the laws.
Yes, all his experience has taught him it's illegal.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that you might be smoking marijuana, and quite openly smoking marijuana, is probably not a good thing, because in his world, that gives him all the probable cause he needs. What I'm talking about is if he is escalating and making it up. There is no reason, there is no smell of marijuana, there is no smell of alcohol, and you know damn well there isn't.
So he's
because you don't
saying
smoke
there
it, you
is,
don't
for
drink.
for the audio, he's saying it is, in the video. I
Exactly.
smell it.
Yeah.
He'll go like,
Yeah, it's all part of the escalation process. So at this point, most people will go, "Oh shit!"
give him everything he wants.
Yeah, because they might argue the point. Well, I don't believe you.
I haven't been
I
drinking,
haven't been
I-
drinking. There's no marijuana in here.
Right.
I don't smoke it. There's nobody been in here that does smoke it. And he'll just say, "I smell it. Out of the car, sir." And then he'll go, "Out of the car, sir." And at that point, it's your choice as to whether you're going to get out under threat or whether you're just going to stick your ground and stay where you are and say, "No, this is my private property. I've not committed any offences, and I'm going to stay here." So his next step is baton, whap, there goes your side window.
Well, or call for backup, obviously.
He's probably already called for backup at this point anyway, so yeah, true. Depending on how far he wants to take this, the chances are he won't be, at this point, talking on his own. He'll have already said, "Okay, can I have another officer down here?" And then he'll just carry on with the conversation. Because calling for backup will only take him a second.
So you
2
better
seconds.
than to let him run his process and
No,
fight it
this
in
is what
court
you do.
later?
This is what you do. And actually, this has come from somebody else, Eddie, and I still don't remember his surname. But this is a sequence that's come from somebody else, and it's very good, it's very useful. So if that ever happens, and he's trying to escalate the probable cause, he's going to make an allegation against you of some sort. And if it is an allegation, and it very obviously is false, then you just turn around and say, "Officer, that's patently false, and you know it. You are trying to escalate this traffic stop, or are you trying to escalate this traffic stop by making up false allegations?" I'll wait for you to answer the question. You've told him it's patently false, and you're also pointing out that he's making up an allegation in an effort to escalate this stop. And you can actually say, is it your intention to escalate or to generate probable cause to escalate this traffic stop. You can put all that within the sentence, so then it's explained exactly that you know what he's doing, and he knows that you know what he's doing. So hopefully at that point he will go, excuse me, and disappear, because he can't follow up at that point.
Or he just may ignore it and say, get out of the car. He may
ignore it, but
so
the thing
not
is,
answering.
No, because what you can then do, you've asked a question.
Yeah.
You made the allegation that's patently false, and you know it. Are you at this point trying to make false allegations in an effort to generate probable cause to escalate this traffic stop? That's generally what you could say. And that has all of the components within that question. He, as a public servant, should answer you. He is expected to answer.
Okay.
Now, his answer might be, no, I smell marijuana, I want you to get out of the car. And if he's going to force that issue, then he's digging his hole deeper at this point, because you've given him all the opportunities, no probable cause for the initial stop. You've given him the documentation that proves that he doesn't have authority for what he's doing anyway, and then he started making false allegations against you, and it's all on tape.
The tape is key.
So, and you're pointing out to him, I know what you're doing. It's a false allegation. You're just trying to upgrade this, elevate this traffic stop into something greater, so it becomes an actual arrest. And he either backs down, and you're on your way,
Or he doubles down.
or he doubles down. And again, this is something you're going to have to deal with. But at each time or each part of the process, my intention is to give you the tools to defeat him without having to get into violence, without having to do anything, and without having to deal with this later, having sat in a jail cell for a day.
Right.
Eddie Craig,
Thank you.
Randy Kelton, I met him.
Yeah. So it's Eddie Craig.
Right.
You know, kudos to Eddie Craig for and he does actually have a full video talking about the whole process and how he actually talked a woman through this process who had been stopped, and he goes through exactly that same thing. By this point, the backup was there. The sergeant was there because they'd been there probably 45 minutes, and then they decided they were going to try and escalate it because everything else had failed. But they'd kept her there at this point 45 minutes or whatever. So the young pup said, "Okay, let's escalate this." And I smell alcohol.
Now you got a couple of them around the car. Do you smell it? Yeah, I smell it. You guys smell it? Oh, yeah, I smell this.
Well,
Not only that,
let's get,
Yeah. But that was instantaneous. The response.
Yeah.
It's patently false, officer, and you know it. And then you go into the rest of the spiel.
Yeah.
And what he described happened was that they were caught. They knew they were caught, and his response to it, he wasn't doubling down. He went, "Just a moment, ma'am," and then went off to his sergeant. "Okay, shit, she caught us. What do we do now?" And eventually, I think she was let on the way. Probably there for an hour, but she got no tickets, I don't think, or anything, and was on the way. But even if she gets a ticket, deal with it later. At least you weren't arrested, harassed, vehicle towed, all that shit. So the idea is to defeat all of this during the course of any kind of traffic stop, and to be aware of the processes that they may use to escalate the situation and get you whichever way they can. And the idea, they may have other things that they'll throw at you, but these are, if they go that far, man, they're really, really trying. And they may get to the point where, and I've seen the videos, they just give up at that point, and then it's a case, you step out of the car, sir, or I'm coming in for you. And, no, I ain't moving, and then, wow. Undo, lock, doors open, dragged out.
Right. They haven't done a few of the things that you have suggested. They get there a lot quicker. They don't give the officer a chance to think. Like
With what, sorry?
Well, just there's no. I've never heard at one of them yet where they said, "Do you have any evidence I'm carrying passengers or property for hire?" No, I've never heard on one of the or seen one
Oh,
of
yeah,
these videos.
on the videos?
No, the videos I've
No.
never heard that.
So they haven't established that there's no jurisdiction
Exactly.
right there.
So therefore,
Yeah.
they still have in their mind
Yeah, you broke the law.
jurisdiction.
Yeah, and I guess at that point, that's
And there's
true.
no
In many of
sign.
those videos
No
where it goes
sign.
badly wrong,
Right.
that's usually what's happened. So the defense and the protection against that
Right.
is hopefully the process that I've explained.
No, I hear you.
Asking the
I'm
questions,
excited.
yeah, and that's the reason. So
So-
ask them the questions, which defeats their probable
No,
cause,
it's-
and then go on move to the prima facie evidence
You're
that
putting up-
dispels
Yeah.
their presumptions of law and authority. Then if they still want to go further, then they're really, really trying. But at this point, if they're going to arrest you before they smash the window in, and if you see that's going to happen, just say, okay, well, I am going to step out of the vehicle. I mean you no harm. The document that I gave you said that I am a non-belligerent. I'm a peaceful man. I'm getting out because you have guns and I don't, and I am under duress and feeling threatened that if I don't do as you ask me to or tell me to, you're going to shoot me, whether I've done anything to deserve that or not. Excuse me. So this could be part of the approaching conversation if you feel it's going to go that way, and then you get out of the car. And if they're going to arrest you, put you in the back of the car, do further checks, do a search on your car, it's all further. They're breaking the law. You're not giving them any, mind you, search after arrest. They're good at that one because technically, I think they're still supposed to, in the US anyway, but certainly I think in the UK and Canada, they have the authority to search after arrest, especially in the location where you were arrested. So if the arrested location was your car, they have the authority.
And that's where they plant the evidence, maybe, if they're that far along.
That too.
Two comments. One question. Would this work in New Jersey with me, just if I put that in the back of the car?
Mm-hmm.
And even though I have a license, I should be able to go through this whole process before they ever even, where I have to, it's immaterial whether I have a license or not.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Because part of that form, that the document that I mentioned in there, it does state that I am giving you this document in place or as a result of your demand from any document or license or registration or anything else that you have demanded from me. And further in there it says about the fact that you're giving it to him, whether you have or have not got any of those documents.
Right, I read that.
So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
you're not admitting to not having them, and you're not admitting
Right,
to
so
having
pretty
them.
much
You're
anybody-
just saying,
Yeah.
here, read this. And I'm not saying or denying that I have them or whatever. But the thing about this notice, and you can change it a little bit. You can actually write on the top of it, notice. You can change it any way you want. But that verbiage covers pretty much everything as far as hackney carriages or public, private hire, and public vehicles, transportation, and any other kind of commerce on the road. So it covers that, and it explains to the cop. He should know right at that point.
Right.
If, especially it's one of those states where they do delineate between a motor vehicle and a motor vehicle engaged in commerce, because the definitions, and actually the definition of a motor vehicle in Title 39 for New Jersey, it doesn't have engaged in commerce.
Right.
But Title 39 and any of the other Highway Traffic Acts or the Road Traffic Acts that are out there, or the legislation for other states, they all get their authority from the federal legislation,
So
which does have.
Right, so New Jersey conveniently removed it.
Yes.
But
But it's still supremacy, so they still have to, do they get it from,
Well, what I'm saying is that the police
Federal-
officer, if he's reading only his state code,
yes,
and you're trying to explain to him that this is not a motor vehicle because I'm not engaged in commerce,
Doesn't compute.
it won't compute to him. He said, oh, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Well, you only have authority over somebody who's engaged in commerce, and a motor vehicle is only a motor vehicle if they're engaged in commerce. So if they're in a state where it does specify that, and there are states, California and there's certain, Oregon I think, Washington,
Texas.
No, New Jersey
No,
it
New
doesn't.
Jersey doesn't.
Not under a motor vehicle. It doesn't, not the description. There is a separate,
I showed you 39-3-1 the other
you
day.
did, but that's only who it doesn't apply to. And because we found that, I'll pull that out actually, and I'll make that as specific for New Jerseyans. Yeah, because there's the exemption built in, so you could use that in New Jersey specifically to use as a defence against that. And because he knows or is acting under that legislation or that regulation for Title 39 New Jersey, he should know that and he should be aware, and you can say, well, this is a defence to it. But others, well, yeah, but there are others where, other states where they have different definitions and you're able to use that. So again, the document that I have, if it's going to be used in a different state somewhere, the idea is to make it your own.
Right.
You shouldn't be using that as a template and just hand it out
No.
because it's specifically designed for me.
Right, if you're
There's
tra-
verbiage in there.
if
is
I'm
for me.
traveling through certain states, it would pay me to at least add that to the, the region. New York, any of their statutes.
Yeah, I mean, if
In New
you
York,
could
New
find,
Jersey,
if
Pennsylvania.
you could find the relevant ones in the,
So,
the local
I
states
think
around
I'm
you.
going to add commerce to your sign. You don't have the word, do you?
Yeah, it does. I don't know
Okay,
about
I couldn't see
transportation
that.
or
All right,
commerce.
good, And then the other point I want to make is a friend was pulled over, went through this whole thing, did everything right. When he filed for basically for money damages for against the city solicitor indicated that unless the police officer signed something on behalf of the city was not liable. Which actually, if that's true, the reason they could
He's
say
acting as a privateer.
exactly, they didn't tell me that part.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
He's acting. He's outside.
That's
acting
critical.
outside of his authority.
Instantly.
When he goes beyond
Yeah.
probable cause, he's no longer acting under the authority given to
I
him.
love that.
So the idea is that you sue him, not the department or the city or whoever. It's him directly at that point.
Is there any, in training, when an officer first comes in and goes through training and everything, is there anything brought up by these officers if you pull over a national? Is there traveling without a license? Is there any training at all, or
I
are
don't
they
know
learn
what
this
they're
all
doing today.
today there?
I don't know what they're doing
Oh.
today. I don't believe that is happening.
So you got to train him.
Pretty much. Yeah.
He ain't no shit.
Yeah. And that's why I say you can't do this out the side window.
Right.
Because he's just. I've heard it all before. Every
Yeah.
excuse in the book.
No,
Don't
it's
wear.
too much-
Just take the ticket and go.
Yeah.
They're not interested. So that the whole point behind this documentation and this route is to show them here. Here's the evidence that I'll be using against you when I sue you. In essence, because part of that document shows that there is precedent for it. Police officers have been sued specifically, and it's $1,000 a minute. That's the amount that's
Yeah.
been set. By
I did a
precedent.
thing years back, a secured party creditor, and that's what's in there too, is the penalty to get.
Yeah, I mean, you could,
Getting hurt or
as part of
whatever.
your document, you could also include some form of fee schedule,
Right.
so that you are making your own personal. So, if you arrest me, then it's going to be $50,000 an hour or $60,000 an hour. If I'm in there for more than a day, then it's $1 million.
And that comes off of the officer, it doesn't come off of, right? him
Well-
personally.
Yeah, it depends, because once the police officer is acting and they're taking you in custody, he personally should and could be sued.
Right.
But once they don't take you to a magistrate or a judge, a justice, because that's the first place they should do, to confirm that they have the authority to hold you. But they don't, they take you straight to the jail, to the police jail.
Right.
But in essence, see, in the UK, it was the desk sergeant who made the decision as to whether this was a bona fide arrest. If it wasn't, and he felt that it wasn't, he would throw you out. So he's taking the place of the sergeant or the justice. So I think if they're going to operate that way, if the sergeant at that point says that it's a bona fide arrest, despite everything that you are able to tell him or
Right,
show him,
the city's
Then-
responsible at that point.
at that point the police department and probably the city would also become
But he's
responsible.
really still acting in their private capacity, only because they're a private concern.
Well, no, as a desk sergeant, he is operating as the backstop for the authority. He's giving the lawful authority behind your detention.
He has no lawful authority.
Well, he's making that decision.
Right, so now he's personally responsible.
Yeah, but he's doing it under the name of the city at that point.
That, the city corporation would be, I guess, well, what's the difference?
Well, the city solicitor or the lawyer for the city, his comment there was that the police officer hadn't signed a contract, blah blah. He was operating privately. That's what he was saying. But
Wow.
what you would be saying in your
Wow.
complaint is that you've provided evidence,
Right.
and you also provided that evidence to the desk sergeant.
Right, that would be the key, is continue the
It's
process.
continuing that process
I love
of
it.
your incarceration.
So now we're
Because, of
now we're
course, the
moving
desk
forward.
sergeant, he's going to be listening to what the cop says.
Right,
And the cop's going to lie through his teeth
Right.
about the sequence of events.
right.
And it's his word against your word.
Well, you have the cam.
And you have the cams as well, but you have to get the cams.
Right.
But you're not going to do that until later.
No, I understand. No,
So-
just act like it's another stop right in the front of the desk,
Yeah.
and when they book you or whatever. Yeah, forgive me, I'm sorry.
You good, George? All right.
No, I'm excited
So,
because now it
yeah.
looks like I can travel with the tags, with that sign, and with his data, and I think I'm good.
Yeah, if you have the ability, I mean, it's still going to be a scary situation to be able to do this.
Well, I'm not scared even now because pretty much they, at this point in life, you know, they don't have the same. I don't sweat the same bullets I used to.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I
that's
don't
fair
care
enough too.
anymore. It's-
But again, having the notice,
No, that's key.
you're
Without
stating
that,
right in
I
advance that
wouldn't
you're
do
not
it.
engaged in commerce.
That's
You're removing
correct.
their presumption of the authority over you.
yeah, and I might get a little laminated card. In case you missed what was on the back of the car, this is what was back there.
Yeah.
Like even on the.
Yeah, I mean, you could do multiple. I've got two of these. The other one's already in the back window. This one I can show on the side window. I can put it wherever I need to. But you know, just so, just as an addition to the presentation, if you like, I recently took a road trip down to, as I mentioned to you privately, I took a road trip from New Jersey down to South Carolina. I spent 12 days in South Carolina, must have put about 1,000 miles of traveling to different points all over the place, different towns and cities in South Carolina, and then traveled all the way back home with this in the back window. And I was passed repeatedly by North Carolina, South Carolina cops, Washington DC cops, because they actually ended up having to come back to Washington DC. So several cops had passed me, and not one single one. And then I know, in fact, while my wife was driving, I know one of them was paying close attention. He passed me slowly and was paying close attention. So he was reading what was on the sign.
Was he?
Yeah. And then he just carried on.
Wow. Nice.
So whether it made any difference to him, I mean, I hadn't done anything wrong anyway. My wife
Right.
wasn't doing anything wrong. We weren't
Right.
speeding. We
Right.
weren't doing anything
So,
crazy.
right. Why bother?
So
why-
even if
don't attract attention.
yeah, well, don't try. Well, that's it. I mean, you could be driving down at 90 mile an hour in a 70, and the rules don't apply to you. But you have some common courtesy for other drivers. Because
Yeah,
to be
don't
honest, I
make
know.
dangerous situations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an advanced driver. I've done police driving, so I can handle a lot of things, many more than most people would ever know. But it frustrates me and annoys me when I see some dickwad passing me at 90. I'm doing 65 in a 65, and I see him coming because I pay attention to what's going on behind me as well as what's in front, and it's what we're trained to do. So, I mean, I can see this idiot from, 2 miles back if the road's clear enough, and I see them coming. And if I might be passing, I'll just get out of the way. Or I might feel belligerent and decide to stay in the outside lane, You're going a bit too fast. And I'll get to a point, okay, now I'll move over. And then pass me again. It's crazy because I'll come up to a set of lights up ahead.
And he's
You've just
there.
been doing and he's there, and I'm doing 65. Pull up. There you are. That got you far, didn't it? You used a shit ton of gas, burnt off your brakes, but it didn't get you any further down the road.
It was a sad day, but I was on my way to Florida, and one such person passed me, and it was beautiful. I mean, fortunately they weren't hurt, but 2-3 miles up, they had flipped their car, and I just got there when they were crawling out of the two sides of the car. It was on the top of its lid, and it had skidded. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, that's happened to me a few times in winter in Canada.
Hey, going so fast now.
Because I was coming back home from work on a particular day, and it was a really bad storm. I mean, it was Canadian weather storm, so there was already about 6-7 inches of snow on the highway. You couldn't see the highway; it was covered. The only way you knew where the lanes were was because there was other traffic that had already used it. Most of it, obviously, on the inside lane. But this idiot in a 4-wheel SUV passed us. I mean, we were probably doing about 45, and that's 45 kilometers, by the way. That's how much the traffic had slowed down. And I was able to go faster if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. There's no point, because I knew other people could potentially cause me harm. So I was just happy to sit where I was and just go. But this guy on the outside lane, hardly any traffic had gone down there. And he flew by, must have been doing, I don't know, maybe 60 kilometers an hour, which was still slow compared to the speed limit of the road, which actually is 100 kilometers an hour. So he was well within the speed limit, but he was going too fast for the conditions. And I actually watched him. He just started to go. Couldn't steer it, lost all steering control, and he drifted off because there's a camber on the road, of course. So he started to drift off, and then he hit. There was an area where they have the lanes on the median, so the emergency vehicles can go between. And anyway, he hit that, which bounced him, and then took off, and he must have flown about 35-40 feet. Yeah, maybe about 40 feet, and then just boom in the ditch, and just stopped because he was at that point he was in probably about 4.5 feet of snow that was in the ditch, and that was old snow as well as new snow, so it was deep snow there. But he took off and he was up to the halfway of the doors in snow, just planted there. And the funny thing was, actually, it wouldn't have been long before the emergency services were there, because on the other side of the highway, probably about 300 feet back on the other side, there was an accident there. So the emergency vehicles were already there, the cops were there, fire trucks were there, everything. So they probably just needed to run up the road. And there
is it
it was.
daytime or nighttime?
It was nighttime, actually. Nighttime.
Dangerous.
Yeah, because I was on the way home from work, so I left work at 6 o'clock at that point. And it was truly dark by then.
Yeah, it's rarely the occasion I worry about myself. my actions out there. It's everybody else.
Yeah, it's everybody else. You know, I mean, there's an occasion, and everybody was clapping in the car because it was a full car, except my nephew. He was shaking.
Because you hardly are.
I hardly use them.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, you know, you're driving, and as soon as the foot comes off the gas, it's on the brake, and I'm like, the car will slow.
Yeah, yeah.
Take your foot off the gas. That's all.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
slow down enough. You won't even have to touch your brakes. You'll be back on the gas.
And that's what I've been trying to teach my
Yeah.
my stepson.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't hit the brake.
You know,
Just take your foot off the
most
gas.
people
and
are
just let it roll
not-
until you need to put your foot on the brake.
But most people are not paying attention enough. Number one, to what they're doing, but also they're looking at the car in front of them
Yeah,
and reacting to that, and only that.
yeah,
And that's if they're doing that, because they're also doing this,
yeah. That's true.
right? So I mean,
Yeah. I've seen.
your reaction time just went to nothing.
Yeah,
You got from here to there to react.
yeah,
You're bound to get into an accident.
yeah.
You know,
And I see too many people
I
driving.
spent a lot of time on the road.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's funny because the initial driver training that we had, and I don't know if they do it over here or even if they still do it in the UK, but the advanced driver training, we used to be taught the 2 feet driving technique. We would be driving about 5 feet from the trunk of the car in front. And I mean, it's both police cars, training cars. But you'd be doing them 70, 80 miles an hour, and you would be 5 feet from the bumper of the car in front, the trainer car in front.
Right.
And it's all about control. So no matter what the car in front was doing, you had to try and maintain that distance. And there would always be some smart son of a bitch who was in the driving seat in front, because they have handbrakes in the cars in England. They have them over here on some vehicles, but the majority don't. They're
Yeah,
all
on the
foot
foot.
brakes, you know. So with the handbrake, you can put that on, you can slow yourself down, but the brake lights don't come on.
Uh-huh.
So as soon as you touch the brake,
You're signaling, sure.
then you signal, so you know the guy behind automatically knows. So because it's 2 foot driving, he's automatically covering or touching the brake to slow down. But when you do the handbrake, there's no indication except visual indication.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where your speed comes in as well, because you start to close that gap, and you have to automatically touch your brake with the 2 foot, and then keep your foot on the gas.
Right.
But enough to slow down so you keep that distance, and then he's back on the gas up front, and then you're back on the gas. So it's decent training.
Yeah.
Scary.
When you drive now, do you drive 2 feet or
No.
one? Because I mean,
It's automatic, so
Yeah.
the cars in England as well were stick shift manual.
yeah, okay.
So
So you are always driving with 2 feet.
You're always driving with 2 feet because you were using your clutch with the left foot, and the right foot was always the gas, and all you ended up doing was from clutch to brake.
Yep.
Your
Yeah, that
foot
foot's
was-
already engaged.
It was always on the gas.
Yeah.
So-
No, I'm saying the left foot's always engaged.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right, it's either on the clutch or the brake, and
Yeah.
you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Right, or floating between the two.
Yeah.
Really?
So I mean, you're changing gears, you up and down the gearbox,
Yeah.
and so there's a different style of driving.
Absolutely.
But
It's forgotten here. My kids are like, Dad, can we get a stick shift? Because we're talking about, my oldest is 14. He's thinking, in 2 years I'm going to be driving. We need to think about this now.
yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, my stepson is 16, and obviously I've dropped into this situation now
Yeah.
because it's a recent stepson. So.
but he wants to learn to stick. He said,
Yeah,
because I told him,
I
I said,
don't
I'll
think-
teach you stick. Absolutely, it should. That's the first I learned to drive was a stick. Because
It-
once you
it's-
do that, you can drive anything.
Yeah, that's right. But it's very, very hard. Seeing how my elder stepson has taken to driving or not taken to driving, as the case may be, I think he was quite scared.
Mm.
And getting him to turn left and then do a right indication as he's turning left because he wants to pull into a parking lot was too much for him. He's like, oh, my head exploded because he had to do,
There's zero experience behind it.
yeah, he didn't know how
It's
to do
all
a
mental
turn
at
left
that
and then
point.
engage the indicator at the same time so he could pull into a parking lot that was right after the left turn. And
Our
he
bodies
just
have such. I mean, people tend to think memory's in the head, it's in the brain, but it's in the body,
yeah.
right? I mean, so
Muscle memory.
all kinds of memory. So, yeah, I mean, it's as soon as you have that experience, you're not thinking about it anymore when
No.
you're doing it, right? It just happens.
automatic.
You know, I mean, there's times that I'm on the road and I'm like, damn, how did I get here already?
I was just going to say,
Holy
yeah, I've
shit,
done
I've been
that
on
many
autopilot.
times. I've done that many times. I've been on autopilot,
Yeah.
and you know, I've set off, and you know, I'm looking at the clock, looking at, holy crap, how did I get here? I don't remember seeing any of the intervening journey, and it's one that I've made so many times
Right.
that I don't have to concentrate on, you know, does the road turn left? What's the road sign? What's the speed?
Yeah.
You know, it's an automatic
It's just
thing.
there.
So you just kind of relax and
Yeah.
enjoy the ride until something happens in front of you, because that's still happening. You know, you still have.
Yeah, you're still monitoring
Yeah.
at that point. And
Yeah.
that's really kind of all you're doing is monitoring the systems that are on autopilot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I love traveling.
Yeah.
And, you know, using my private conveyance to go from A to B. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
You know, and I mean, that trip down to South Carolina, it was 11.5 hours.
So this year I bought the family a travel trailer because we said, listen, we're a family of 5, and for us to vacation someplace, travel via airplane or anything else it's expensive. We've done a lot of road
Yeah.
trips. We enjoy camping. You know, my wife said I really enjoy camping, but she had some neck surgery done. She said I can't do tent camping anymore. It's just I'm uncomfortable. So I said, all right, it's time for us to upgrade. So we bought a second-hand travel trailer, and that has been so much fun. That has just really been enjoyable.
Yeah, no, we would like to do something similar to that as well.
Yeah, so yeah, we didn't pull it out too many times this year, but our first trip was down onto the point, Montauk Point, out in at the end of Long Island.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right onto the sand, right onto the beach, and we spent a week, you know, maybe 75 feet from the water. It was fantastic. It was really beautiful. Sunsets at night, you know, dark skies and beautiful starless
Listening
skies.
to the sea. Just a second. Keep going.
Well, the way you can tell if it's recording
Yeah, it's flashing.
is the red light.
Yeah.
See the red light?
Okay.
And then this.
He was shaking in the middle. He literally was shaking. But we were on our way for a holiday, and again winter. 7 o'clock in the morning. Sun was just coming up. We got to set off early to drive down we had about 4.5 hour drive to where we were going. So, and I'm happily going along. The road's nice. There's a little bit of frost on the road, but the plows had been out and the salters and everything, the sand. And I hit an area that's pretty well renowned for accidents, and it's a slow curve, but it's a downward curve as it goes down and around. So it becomes quite a decent curve on it. And I was doing about 70 kilometres an hour, and the speed limit on that road actually was 80 kilometres an hour. Anyway, it was in an area because it was down, it was cold, and what was happening, or what had happened, the salt, as I was driving over it, was melting but immediately freezing. So the whole thing just turned to ice, and I ended up in a 4-wheel skid. The back end just took off out. As we're going down and round a curve, the back end took off and round. And what normally happens, as I found out, was that people put it on the roof and roll it, because they go round and it goes round too far and then digs out.
Counter steer it. Yeah.
Well, they don't even counter steer it. At that point, it happens so fast that they're already in a side spin. It catches and then they're in a roll, and then they end up in the ditch on the roof somewhere. This is what I found out because the local fire chief actually passed us and then came back because he saw us minutes after we'd landed up. But I ended up going off the road, but it must have been 300-400 feet skid, because I literally turned into it, and I was fighting it, the advanced driver training and everything, and I'm fishtailing at this point, but I'm keeping it on the road. And then I got so slow, I think, oh, I'm going to make it, I'm going to save it. And then just at the last part, it flipped round too far, caught and then drove forward. And I went through the snowbank and landed into a pile of snow off the side of the road. Fortunately, it was just snow. There was nothing else. It was just a small brush tree that was there that we brushed against. But nothing else, no rocks. On the other side, it was boulders. So if we'd gone off the other side,
Different story.
a different story. But anyway, I managed to get out of the car, and the first thing, I had to climb out the window. Open the window, and I had to climb out because the doors were jammed. We'd landed down in pretty deep snow. So I climbed out the window, and I went to step on the snow. Like 3.5 feet of snow in the ditch. So I'm trying to climb out and get onto the road, and then I looked up at the road on the curve, and I could see my skid, fishtailing all the way around, and I followed it around the curve. I could see it disappearing off around the curve. And then, of course, as the traffic came by later, then it all disappeared. But
That was revelatory.
that was a
good.
scary event. But my niece, who was in the back, she had also done advanced driver training in the UK, and she said that was amazing. She said, you absolutely saved us, because we could have ended up being seriously injured by what was happening there. I was okay. I wasn't harassed, or I was fine. My young nephew, was in the backseat. He was shaking. It scared him so much. But everybody else realised how dangerous the situation was, and I knew how dangerous the situation was. And the only thing that I couldn't do, because I was spending so much time, it was fishtailing so fast, and I was trying to correct all the time, I couldn't knock it into neutral. I couldn't spare the hand to knock it into neutral, so I still had power going to the actual front wheel drive, but I still had power, even though it was idle power, because I had my foot off everything, no brakes, no gas, no nothing, but it didn't slow down enough, and I still had enough power going to it that it continued to slide. So that's the one thing that I regret not being able to do, because I think if I had managed to knock it in neutral.
There's nothing stopping the wheels from turning because of the ice.
Yeah.
Like there was no cement or whatever. So then when it finally hit something, they were kind of still spinning.
Yeah, and that's kind of what, when I slowed down enough and reached that sideways point, and it kind of dug at that point, and then it shoved me forward. And I still tried to turn into it so that I could go the way we were continuing to go. But at that point, it wasn't going to do it. We started skidding again anyway, because it was all ice. So even though I turned the wheel, I still was going that way. So I said, okay, I'm going to go off through the ice now. So I just straightened the wheel so that it was straight when I went through. And that was about it.
Bravo.
It's,
That was a lot of clarity you brought today for me.
yeah, thank you for
Well,
listening.
thank you.
In the last little adventures. Does anybody have any questions about any of it? About the document, about questions?
Do you mind sharing the document?
No, not at all. I mean, I shared it with the last group.
Right, and give him the instructions on how to modify it for himself.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would have to, the document itself, most of it is self-explanatory, and you probably won't need to make any changes.
Right.
But certainly there are paragraphs within the first 5 pages, 6 pages maybe, that you should look through and read.
And understand.
And understand and
Yeah.
comprehend it.
No, I'm not
completely.
just looking for a document to go here.
No,
Yeah.
I mean you can't, because there's
Well, I mean,
verbiage
it talks
in there
about
that
you
is
being
really
a-
specific for me.
Right.
So
Young
you would have to
police
make
officer.
changes so that it's
A former
specific for you.
police officer. and so
Yep.
on. But I started changing it and I'm just about done. And now that you've given me these extra fences to put up, I mean, they're toast.
You would think so, yeah.
No,
You know,
I think so. And I've dealt with these guys enough. And now, and also understanding about the liability of the individual man standing there. And the whole, as I accept your oath of office in this?
No, there's no point. For me, there's no point. The guy knows that he has an oath of office.
He does?
Yeah. There's no, to him, he doesn't know the distinction between operating under his oath or operating as a privateer. far as he's
It's just
concerned,
something he
he's
had
been
to do.
trained,
In New
and
Jersey,
he's operating
well,
under his oath. Unless he does know, in which case
It's worse.
it's even worse. But, you know, I will give them all the benefit of the doubt
Right.
that they
Well, I'm
don't
not-
know
yeah.
because they've not been told.
But I'm looking
I
for-
was never told.
Right.
I had to find this stuff out myself.
Right, and that's the thing, were you here when I discussed the oaths that they have in New Jersey, in this town? I forget if you were here for that.
No, I don't think there was anything specific that I heard about that.
Well, in the process of a couple of problems in this town, I have been researching and obtaining, oh no, it wasn't with you, it was with someone else, that's
Mhm.
why, in New Jersey.
You and I
there-
spoke about it a bit.
Yeah. In New Jersey, there's a mandatory oath for all public employees.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then there are two further oaths that are potentially additional that they have to take.
Okay.
No one except the oath that is proper, according to statute, every teacher already has one, under the allegiance to the Constitution of both states, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Will support it, etc. But I have had to acquire a number of police officers' oaths. None of them have the proper oath. The chief of police does not have the proper oath. The mayor does not have the proper oath.
Now, are they operating as a private corporation then?
Yes, but even so, the state statute, which is a private corporation, has commanded them to take certain oaths.
Yeah.
So I am going to personally put the oath in there and, quote the statute on the video.
Well, that would be attacking, well, I say attacking, but that would certainly be questioning their authority to act as a police officer to start with. But do they have authority under other legislation, let's say?
Not the way I read it, because they're basically operating in commerce, because they're here as a revenue generator, and that's why you pulled me over, because I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
You pulled me over, or I'm for no reason, for their
But they still obviously have an office to protect and defend the Constitution and to protect the peace, which is what every peace officer is defined.
That's not
as
what,
doing.
I can't find it anywhere in their statute so far.
So
Nothing
they're
about peace.
acting then as a private police force.
Right, so exactly, with guns,
Yeah.
which, and now, the solicitor said that officer who did what he did, he could not make a contract on the side of the road
Couldn't make a contract with who?
with somebody who pulled the $1,000 a minute thing. If you take the car, starting now, it's $1,000 a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Well, he
city,
has a person. Anybody can make a contract. Everybody
exactly,
has its
but
own.
not, yes, but see, the city didn't tell the police chief to tell the officer that he's the one making the contract, because they say you're in our uniform with our gun and our car,
Mm-hmm.
therefore, and you're going out under our authority, under the authority of the state.
Yeah.
So in their mind, they're state employees. They're basically under the state.
Well, that'd be interesting.
So I'll send it to you because it's highly enlightening. And then when I went to the city clerk, every municipality in the state that's under this specific, most of them are under they have to have, there's 7 positions in every city that must have the proper oath. Tax assessor, city solicitor, mayor, city clerk, town engineer, there's one other. Nobody in this town has the oath. So then when I went into the city
Oh, they've
clerk,
not taken the oath. This is what you're saying.
if they've taken an oath, it's not the proper one.
It's not enough.
Many of them don't have it. And when I went to ask the city clerk, who didn't know she had to have one.
Yeah. Well. That's part of the problem. They don't know what they don't know.
So then I said to them when they were handing me the some of the police officers that have signed over the last 5-10 years, that I said, why is the proper oath not provided to me? She said, well, there's 3 of them. They only have 2 of them, which are not the right one, that they have in their drawer. So she says to me, well, whatever one we pull out of the drawer is the one they sign.
Wow.
So it's just going to the fact that,
I mean, the other question we still haven't clarified on that was the certificate. You know, to be a police officer.
the peace officer?
Yeah.
No, I have looked.
Mm-hmm.
It says nothing about it, and I looked under New Jersey. There's no word of peace officer in there.
Okay.
So they don't have to be a peace officer first.
They're not a peace officer
At
ever.
all. Okay.
Because why? If they were, that would be maybe. It could be that that's a constitutional office.
Yeah.
And they don't have one. They're private. It's completely private. Completely.
So it's not under the state constitution at all?
The state constitution is private.
Okay.
It's craziness. It's nothing that we've been taught.
So the only people, which is one thing that we have been told about, that technically have the authority as peace officers would be the sheriff's department.
And I got his oath, and it's not the proper oath. Seriously, it's crazy. And then they gave me one a year or 2 old. I've asked for the good one. They then haven't gotten back to me in weeks. Now the mayor, so our understanding currently is the military commander for the state is the governor.
Yeah.
And under him is the mayor or the county sheriff. And then, of course, you have your state police, right, which are directly under like they answer directly to the government.
Governor, yeah.
But when I go down here to the city hall, the mayor's there with the flag in the background, the picture, the governor, and the president. So basically, they're military commanders, which goes to his martial law. It's all martial law. It's all martial law. Now, we're non-combatant. We're peaceful non-combatants. Non-14th Amendment citizens. And most
Which,
of
you note, is also the first line of the,
yeah, it's a good line.
the document that I put out there. But the second page, anyway, the first obviously.
We
is the-
talked a little bit yesterday about the 7 components of jurisdiction.
Yeah, I do have that document, obviously, and I pointed it out. It's on my laptop. I can certainly provide you copies of it. We spoke about it, myself and a friend of mine whose YouTube channel. I believe it's still available on, but we did podcasts over it. So on the camera, I'm not going to say necessarily who it is, but there's a show that I used to do in conjunction, co-host with another guy, and we talked about the 12 presumptions of the court and the 7 elements of jurisdiction, and broke them down. And I think those talks are still available, so if I can find them, I can give you a link.
How long was it? Multiple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we broke it down, so, you know, we did a podcast and spoke about the 12 presumptions 1 week, and then went about the 7 elements of jurisdiction another week. So the podcasts were typically about 2 hours. 2 hours each.
That's going to be valuable.
And we did a lot more shows about different things, different aspects. But we broke those down specifically because we were trying to train, again, more people into the reality of things. So,
Well, thank you, Karl. That was,
Yeah, that was
awesome.
great.
Awesome.
thank you.
Huge. You really sharpened my knife.
But,
They're in a
I
lot
just
more
hope
trouble
everybody
now.
gets it and understands it, and if it ever gets through on video for people out there, hopefully they'll they'll get some benefit from it, because that's what it's all about. It's giving people tools to deal with situations, because everybody's scared, especially when they're first starting. And to be honest, the right to travel is probably one of the first things that people really start to do, to put the foot out there and start challenging the system. Why, I'm not too sure, because they're in direct opposition to the police. So it's a tough one to do. But if they have the nerve to do it, and they think they have some knowledge to back up their actions, and they can deal civilly with the police, because just like, I have to say it, most of them are just like you and me. The cops, they're doing a job, they trained for it. Generally, the majority of them are doing it for the right reason. That's why I was out there, I was doing it for the right reason. Mm-hmm. The job itself, you quickly learn, is completely different. It's not what you think it is or believe it is. So, one of my bugbears, if you happen to have a guy who's coming up behind you, and he's, 40s or 50s, as a cop, worry. Because that guy has spent a long time as a police officer, probably, is well aware of the situation, and he's not fazed by it. So he's going to ride your ass, probably. Huh. Now, a young cop, they can be just as bad, because they're trying to prove themselves at this point that they can do the job, and maybe go a little too far. And I've been around, I've worked with probationers after I stopped being a probationer, and these guys want to prove themselves, and the hot jockeys, you just, whoa there, whoa. Experience, let the experience take control a little bit. But once they get past that point of experience into extended experience and extended work, then you've got to ask the question, okay, well, does this guy believe everything that he's taught, and he's following the book, and he's been doing it for the last 20 years, and if he, or 15 years, whatever it might be. And if he is, and he has, it might not matter what you say or do, he's just going to follow the process and the procedures. You might be lucky, and he might just say, I'm experienced enough, have a nice day, sir. And be on his way. But hopefully, this just stops him from even pulling you over, because it removes his presumption. If he knows, if he understands it and he knows, that should remove his presumption. And if you're not driving around in something that's, or travelling around in something that's dangerous, and you're driving, travelling in a car that's a pretty good condition. My vehicle it's not a beater, so it's not a danger to anybody. I don't generally speed. No need to. I follow the progressive driving that we were taught, which is why I can have someone pass me at 80 and I'm doing 65 and pull up behind them down the road, still doing the same speed, because I do the progressive. I keep going when they're doing this all the time. I just read the road and just continue.
I just set the cruise. Then I don't have to worry about the speed.
Yeah. Now the only problem with that is I found the tricky sons of guns, because the roads that they have, not necessarily the highways, but even on some of the highways, they change the speed. 1 minute it's 60 and then 50.
Yeah.
And at that point, hello.
Yeah.
And and you're doing 65, because you were on cruise control, and not doing anything wrong until all of a sudden the speed limit hit 50. So you kind of got to pay attention. And the other thing as well, because I'm using an out-of-country car, my speedo only reads kilometers. So I usually use a GPS, which gives me the speed limit that I'm traveling at, and also the speed posted on the road. And that, I've noticed on occasion, has sometimes been wrong.
Actually, yeah, the GPS will be wrong compared to, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's actually more common you know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I
you
know
gotta
what's
get it.
happening is that what they're doing is they've actually they're reducing the speed on the roads, because the GPS is posting a speed limit of say 40, and you'll find that the posted sign limit is 35 or 30, you know, or it's a 45 and it's down to 35. They're slowing the speed limits down.
I
So-
found also that it's higher. This posted speed limit's higher than the GPS says. I
Yeah,
found that.
I mean, if
The
they're
only
not-
time that I've ever seen that is on a highway when it was posted at 55, but the speed limit on the highway had been changed and it was now 65.
Right.
We also have
So-
these places, I think it was Virginia that I was in, that they've got a digital speed sign that changes depending on the traffic.
Yes, I saw those when I was going.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it may be 50 today because there's some congestion, but tomorrow it's 60.
Yeah.
You would think that, I mean, the traffic kind of regulates itself. You know, if there's heavy traffic, people slow down.
Right.
And so, why would, that's kind of like, you know, overkill in my opinion, you know.
I think what they try and do,
Somebody
they
got
don't
some
post
long
that kind of speed at the location of obstruction. They post it way before, so it gets you to slow down. Because typically the reason for the accidents is because you're doing 65, you're doing the speed limit, and all of a sudden you're hitting a wall of traffic in front of you that's
You
doing
can't
20.
stop.
You're not expecting it.
And you're not expecting, it's like, oh shit, you know. So, I mean, I comprehend that, I understand it, but that's one of the reasons with the advanced driver training, you're not looking at a car in front of you, you're looking like a mile down the road if you can see
It's
a
like,
mile down
it's
the
very
road.
similar to how you talk to fly a plane.
Yeah,
You're always,
Yeah, I always, well, I took defensive driving when
Yeah.
I was younger. So
Scanning.
you're driving for yourself and everybody else on the road.
Yeah.
You know, so you're looking for any indications that something might be happening way down there.
I think
The
most-
tail lights, you know.
Yeah.
yeah, you see a load of tail lights coming on and down the road.
I
But
know.
I'm usually, as well, because I'm trying to teach my stepson the same thing, because he, fortunately, he was already told stay a certain length, 4-car lengths at a certain speed behind the car in front. And I said, yeah, you're going to do that, but then you're going to end up with 2 cars in front of you.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Yep.
you'll be driving, oh, this is great.
right.
What the hell? And then you drop him further back.
It happens again and again.
Yeah, and it happens again and
Yeah,
again.
right.
So, I mean, the idea is to be able to judge a decent distance
And be
without
safe.
being too close
Right.
and be
And always
safe,
have your way out.
and always have the way out, and
Yeah.
you know, comprehend how to do that, and look far enough ahead so that you can see what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go through it take me years to go through a set of brakes. 'Cause